Hello and welcome to the Move Your Business Forward podcast. These talks are hosted by Rob Bowl, founder of Evoke Management and CEO of International Leaders UK. We'll be talking with experts from both of these companies about issues that affect SME companies today.
Welcome to this episode of the Move Your Business Forward podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Helen Goldberg of Legal Edge. Legal Edge, as per the tagline, Helen, is all about flexible legal services. Delivering better in-house legal services to fast growth companies. That all sounds very, very useful and impressive, and I'm delighted to have you here today, Helen. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
So what made you start Legal Edge and go on this journey into flexible, fractional legal services?
Oh, good question. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Do you know, look, we started Legal Edge 15 years ago. Donna and I started it together. We were both in-house counsel at tech media companies. And I think without us knowing, we were actually at the start of a real sea change in how legal services are provided, which is brilliant for businesses and also brilliant for lawyers, by the way. Old days, it was law firms and in-house counsel. And that was it. And in the last 15 years, there's really been a proliferation of how legal services are provided with technology, with AI, with people doing things differently, which is absolutely brilliant. We had no idea we're at the start of it, which is great. Donna and I, both in different jobs, were very busy in-house counsel, looking at the way our services were being provided and the way we were working within our businesses, thinking there must be a better way of doing this. And also realizing that we were very, very often under-resourced. In-house legal is often under-resourced. People hire quite late, particularly outside of the US. It's a late hire. It's an expensive hire, sometimes a painful hire, I hear. And people often don't get the right person in. So we looked around and realized that actually, as a sort of sole in-house lawyer, you're often very busy, or as a small team, you're often very busy. And then there's all these businesses that don't have an in-house lawyer that could really benefit from one and are very often either under or overdoing it from a legal point of view. We talk very much about the sort of Goldilocks principle. We have lots of clients who've either done nothing or messed something up, and they don't realise until it gets quite late. Or we also...
Interestingly, when the companies I've worked in before working with SMEs, I've been at JP Morgan, and there's a massive legal team there in-house, and then a more boutique finance firm, we had one in-house legal counsel who can clearly put in other people for support. But one, that was incredibly useful to have someone on tap for that legal input and legal support. But also you end up being very reliant on that one person. Do they know everything? And are they at the pace of change? And we, with the pace of change now compared to
crazy,
feels like 5 minutes ago, let alone 10 years ago, is completely different. And I think it's only going to get faster and faster. And having a pool of talent for this legal area, which is flexible, you've got a group of people that can probably help each other, I'm assuming, in terms of the support they provide and learn from others, is hugely valuable. The interesting thing you just made is, some people do this too late or not early enough. I mean, I've seen companies in my career that's almost like, have you got legal advice on that? And so, well, there's almost like that fear of picking up the phone and the clock starts.
I know.
But what we're seeing now is companies like yours that offer, project-based one-off work, but also just have someone on that retainer. So, it's in the budget, you've got it, you get something appropriate for where you think you're at the moment. What value does that bring, in your opinion? What are you fixing or avoiding if you have that on tap support?
Look, we talk about being proactive. A lot of us are ex-law firm. As you say, you came from JP Morgan. I got hired. I was at Baker McKenzie, massive international law firm, doing an M&A and private equity before I got hired in by a client. In a law firm, you're very reactive. A client picks up the phone and says, I need X, and you just go, right, how high can I jump? What do you need me to do to get this deal over the line, or whatever it is? In-house counsel is very different. The idea when you have a good in-house counsel is that they're part of your operations team. They get to know the business, they're helping you do business, and they're looking after your back. Really, that's what they're there for, very basically. Helping you do the deals, making sure that you're doing the right stuff, and just that sort of compliance stuff as well. And you're right, it's quite easy, particularly as a first in-house lawyer, to get overwhelmed, which is why we talk very much about hiring the right resource. All of our lawyers are experienced in-house lawyers for fast growth companies. That's really key. I was a hiring from a law firm for my first in-house job. I was the first in-house lawyer in. It was a business of 400 people. The US had 2 people. There was nobody covering Europe. I covered Europe. Newsflash, I was entirely the wrong hire. I had no idea what I was doing because I was an M&A lawyer. And then I come in and I'm inundated with people. So really, I worked out how to be an in-house lawyer and to manage it and say, I don't need to worry about this, but there's some stuff over here that I've heard about that I actually really do need to do. And I really need to help the sales team do their contracts quicker and better because they're not getting them done. That was key for, and it is for lots of our businesses.
Yeah. And I guess I think the value add you can bring and your team can bring is making sure we've got your back, because I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs, will have an idea or have something they know they're going to do. The last thing you want is to pay a lawyer to tell you, no, you shouldn't do that, because you're going to do it anyway. And I guess what you're bringing is a proper sense check, right? Is this really the right thing to be doing, or what are the risks? So you can then make an informed decision with that extra level of knowledge that you might not have as a non-legal person.
Exactly. And not to stop doing business. You know, so if you've got a lawyer that's stopping you from doing business, you've got the wrong person. And there's lots of really very risk averse, very good lawyers out there who are very good at being specialist lawyers. They're not the right people for a fast growth tech company, for example, as their first in-house lawyer. That's not the sort of person that you need. You need somebody who can help you get on and just go, actually, we really need to start doing a bit of GDPR, you know.
And I guess the main piece there is, ultimately the advice you're giving is one that you understand fully what you're signing up for and what you're agreeing to. But ultimately, that only really comes into play when there's been a problem, right? Where someone's not been happy with the service, or you've delivered something wrong, or something's gone badly, and you have to pull out those contracts that you thought you'd never look at again. And I guess that's the risk, isn't it? If you haven't got that right at the beginning, even if
that's all contracts are. I mean, they're just an insurance policy, and so particularly for the startup community, we're all about just get some business in and do it on some quite basic contracting terms. For a lot of companies, that works. Once you've then started getting it, then you can start getting your contracting better and your processes better. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realise a good in-house lawyer does. It's actually all about processes. We're generally under-resourced and or lazy. We don't want to look at every contract. We want to put some good processes in and then say, right, that's done. You keep using those standard contracts. I don't have to look at them again. I only want to focus on the high value, high risk work that's really going to help the business do well. I shouldn't, if I'm looking at every NDA, something is wrong.
Yeah, and I guess that bit is, you've got standard documents, but you always get the dreaded, or someone's passed it on to their legal team to have a look at it, and they've got some comments and questions, and having someone that can just deal with that, or give you some practical advice as to what we should change or not change is useful, right? That's
it so is. And look, we work with a lot of fast growth companies who are working with the much bigger partners. So particularly, for example, SaaS being sold into banks, insurance companies, you've got a team of I don't know how many lawyers in these banks, insurance companies, all wanting to value add. And so our job is to let's navigate this as quickly as we can and get the deal signed up so that you can recognise the revenue and move on and get the next deal done.
And are you seeing a change in that at all? Because I remember, and it's not just lawyers. I think it's all kinds of things, isn't it? Someone in the decision chain or someone that has been asked an opinion feels like they've got to give an opinion. And if someone sat there either giving advice to your potential customer or whoever you're trying to do a deal with, if they've got someone giving them legal advice and they've been asked to look at something, they feel like they've got to say something, right? And are you seeing any of that changing? I mean, there's so much more access to either simple contracts or contracts you can pick up and use, and all kinds of technology to help with this, and even AI you can use to summarize things. Are you seeing,
I agree. Yes.
Are you seeing a change in actually there should be less human input into some of these things?
Less lawyering. I'm all about not over lawyering. As an in-house counsel, we're not incentivized to over lawyer. We have a budget, we need to stick to it. And so our job is to make sure that we can get things done quickly and efficiently. I'm all for using all sorts of things. And I write blogs on this, and I talk about the legal sort of risk heat map as well. You know, you've got to work out, as a lawyer, you've got to work where you're going to add value and where you're not going to add value.
Yep.
Over lawyering or looking at small value stuff is just a complete waste of everybody's time and money. Yep. So it's particularly because we're nearly always first in-house lawyering, we have to speak to our clients about how to use us, how it's sensible to use us. We then go in, we then get inundated, we then say, no, this isn't going to work. We're not responsible for all of your contracts. We're only going to look at these, and this is how your sales team's going to work with us. And we'll get the deals done much quicker if you just use us for that. So, you know, we do playbooks, we talk about self-help and training for sales teams so that they're more motivated and more empowered to do more themselves. And then they only use the lawyer when they really should. Just like, you know, as you do as a CFO, just come to me with the big stuff. If I'm doing too much of the small stuff, then I'm not doing my job properly.
Yeah, no, 100%. So part of your process then would be to go in and do some kind of assessment and pick up where the risk areas are, right? And stuff we can ignore. This is the stuff we need to get right. Yeah.
It's our favourite job. We do legal health checks, mini legal health checks, full legal health checks, getting ready for exit, getting ready for investment, all those sorts of things. Just getting these businesses, sometimes they're in brilliant order. They've had really good people managing that. Sometimes they can be a bit chaotic, but it's just about going in and doing a dig. I think because also I came from a due diligence background, I did way too many years of due diligence. So you're just digging and to work out what's going to cause a problem later on, fix it, move on, rather than wait too late and for it to be, it's always the same stuff. Company secretarial, share option schemes. It's not always the same stuff. It used to, there can be, you know, data protection. There's always some things that haven't been done that can be fixed early on, but can be really painful and expensive to fix if you leave it too long.
But also, if you're going to go through some kind of due diligence, whether it's to either be acquired or whether it's to raise some money or get, you know, capital or even debt, you know, the banks need to look at some of this stuff. You're going to have to do it anyway. So if you've got a process of having that legal data room, if that's what you want to call it, and having processes that you stick to and use regularly, you're saving that. And I guess, investing in that early helps do it properly in the first place, but you're going to have to pay for that stuff anyway at some point, aren't you? To get
you are, and it's much easier to set it up early and then to have it grown on, rather than just go, oh my God, we've got 10 years of contracts, we don't know where they are. Or God, nobody's ever done our corporate company's house filings and we're not quite sure what a cap table looks like. It can actually be the difference between a company surviving and not, because quite often if they're doing fundraising, if there's a problem, you're out of money before it gets fixed.
Yeah. So a question for you in terms of the detail you might help with, and I'm like some entrepreneurs, I'm dyslexic. I don't like reading lots of data, and I struggle to necessarily make sense of some of this stuff as well. So if you've got somewhere sat there, maybe contracts getting more complicated, or they're being asked to look at more things in contracts they're coming up against, going through more legal work. At what point do you see someone going, this is the right time to get someone in to help with this? And what are the things that you're going to take pressure off them, especially if someone not good with legal language, let alone if they're dyslexic and struggle with any words, and they've got other things more interesting to do anyway.
Well, and also, as you know, particularly with the CFOs, you've got the CFO job to be doing. So I talk to lots of CFOs saying, I look after legal. Quite often it's split between CFO, COO, CRO. You know, you've generally got the C-suite. Somebody high up is looking after legal. And often it's taking up I had a conversation with somebody recently who said they're doing 2 days a week. And I'm like, well, how are you doing your CFO job if you're doing 2 days a week on, you know, and there's a stage at which you should be outsourcing, like everything when you start a business. There's a stage at which you need to bring in sales, marketing, you know, people, HR team, you know, all of these specialists as you grow. And it is a very late hire outside of the US. I'm still not quite sure why. I think it's a more respected position in the US. I've worked with some really great US GCs who have been very early stage, and they are fully embedded in the business and very respected, and they're the go-to people, and they're very helpful. It's less like that outside of the US. I'm not quite sure why. So I talk to lots of particularly C-suite, about when's the right time to offload it and put a bit of budget towards somebody else looking after this. We're really good at doing this stuff. We do it day in, day out.
And it's interesting to know, why US has just got this as a much earlier hire. Do you think that's to do with some of the legal complexities that happen, or some of the cases?
Some of it is, yeah. I mean, it's a highly litigious. It's, you know, there's a lot more regulation, but also I think it is just a more respected role, and it's been around a lot longer. Corporate counsel, general counsel, you know, that's the terminology that's been around in the US for a very long time. But I also think it's a little bit about our education as lawyers. I don't think, I look back now at how we were educated and what we were taught to do, and we're all taught to be extremely risk averse. You have to get rid of all of that when you're first in-house counsel. You have to work out how to help your business and look after them.
And as you say, it's about that navigating a way forward, right? You could have all kinds of barriers legally, contractually, to make progress in the way that the business needs to, based on all kinds of things, based on the fact it might be early stage, fast growing, and just it's what it is, right? You're not going to spend loads of money on doing all kinds of things that someone might be asking.
No. And I think that's the other problem. If you ask a certain lawyer, they'll say there's all this stuff you need to do, but actually a really good practical in-house counsel, like a good practical finance team, will just go, these are things we really need to focus on. I remember CFOs early on in my career saying something about the 80-20 rule, and I said, well, that doesn't apply in law. You can't. Of course it does. Of course it can. Just that we're taught to do everything 100%. You can't.
Yeah. And just having some of the discussions as well. I mean, I know from my experience, a finance director, CFO, having a conversation with a bank, a lender, an investor, a group of investors, even HMRC, it's just a better conversation generally, because the language is being spoken in the same way. When does that apply for legal conversations or legal related conversations? I think it's very similar, but I think it is always about what sort of people, what sort of skill set do I need to help this, whatever it is, go well, go better. So like you say, if you've got somebody bringing in a lawyer on the other side, it's quite difficult, I think, for you to have that conversation without a lawyer. It shouldn't be. And also you need to have the right person speaking that language. If you've got and this is why I talk a lot about using the right legal resource for the right job. Sometimes you need to use law firms. Sometimes you need to use a good in-house counsel. Sometimes AI and templates is perfectly good. It's when to use that resource. And I talk to lots of CFOs about, you know, not thinking that the law firms are the only legal resource. They're really good at what they do. But they're not necessarily fit for purpose, and I think that's the key thing, isn't it? And that's where they're not the people to go to often for a decision. If you say, hey, should we worry about this or that? So, for example, we've got a really difficult termination, employee termination to deal with. What do we do? An in-house, a really good employment lawyer will often take you through the law. This is what the law says you need to do. Whereas an in-house lawyer's first question, quite frankly, is how do you need to get them out? Do you need to get them out now? If you do, then let's work backwards and work out how risky that is and what the risk potentially is. It's just a different way of doing things. And I think that's what businesses want. And some of the fast growth companies you're working with, as am I, they make the wrong hire. They realize they've done something they probably shouldn't have done. They might not have it backed up. It's like, how quickly can we? Happens to all of us, you know. But also, it's important for me as a buyer of legal services to know when to pick up the phone to the specialists, which I do regularly. So whenever we've had this happen on a good number of occasions where a client is doing an exit, and I'm like, right, that's a big deal, 40 million, whatever it is. I'm going to help you hire in a really good corporate lawyer who's going to do a really good job for you, and I'm really good at that because I know how to buy legal. No, 100%. So we've covered quite a bit there and taken up that time nicely. Last final tips. If an entrepreneur, a business owner, or senior person in an SME business is listening to this, what would be your top two pieces of advice to tell them to do in terms of their legal strategy and approaching someone like yourselves to help with it? What would be your two bits of advice? Well, so I asked this question of a founder not so long ago who said, I think it's important to have a good lawyer and a good accountant behind you and make sure you use them when it's appropriate. Not overdo it, not underdo it. But it's also very different. If you're just at the beginning of a startup journey, use legal really lightly, but use it well.
Cap table and IP generally for our sorts of clients is key to get right at the start. There's a lot that you can apologise for later on and say, oh, we didn't get this quite right, we can sort it out. GDPR is often a journey that people, it's always a journey. But you don't have to get it 100% right on day one. People will shoot me for saying that. When you're growing up, so we work for a lot of clients, as you know, on a regular basis. Most of our clients need stuff done regularly. It's just about getting your contracts, generally for business, getting your contracts done quickly and efficiently, not overdoing it. And then just, again, having somebody keeping an eye out for things that could cause a problem later on and just gently fixing them over time so they don't cause a problem.
I think that's part of it. A big part of it you just said is, what must you get right now and what is going to evolve and be a process, because certain things change anyway over time and there's no point in trying to nail it absolutely.
I'm so sick of GDPR changing. It's ridiculous. But, I think even the GDPR lawyers are.
But as you say, the things that you just need to get right, because it's either never going to change or whatever changes is reliant on what you started with, where it's a cap table or any of that stuff. Is super, super important.
And actually, having said that, if you're a very data-driven company, well, I mean, so for example, one of our clients that we've worked with for a long time is a big platform that is almost entirely used by teenagers. They had to do GDPR properly. If you're a B2B SaaS company, it's different. You're really much less likely to get in trouble.
Yeah, and I think for some of those younger founders, just having that adult in the room, whether it's finance, or whatever, just takes a
bit of gentle hand holding from the adults.
But that's when it comes to finding the right advisor, the right person to be that resource and understand how to use it as well. I think that's a really, really good point.
Look, we get brought in by law firms will say this isn't right for us, we think you guys should, and likewise I'll say this isn't for us, this is for law firms or AI or Seed Legals or whoever. I think it's just important that we're all really transparent about what to use and when and how much it should cost.
Yeah, and that's the real value you're adding, isn't it? Is you need this because of this, but you don't need this. You're actually better off with this over here, especially for that thing. Look, Helen, really enjoyed talking to you for this. So thank you.
It's lovely. Thanks so much for having me, Rob. It's great.
Yeah, awesome. Maybe we'll do another one at some point on another.
Delighted. If people can put up with more legal, I'm delighted.
Cool. Thank you, Helen.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like more information about the topics discussed in this podcast, then you can find us on our website at moveyourbusinessforward.com.